Hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of Shift Happens. My name is Joe Smith. I am your host and the lead pastor of an open and affirming church in Gainesville, Florida. And today I have a special guest, my friend Kane. And Kane and I met. I think we first started meeting through the Pride Center. I think that's how we met, and just the different events that the Pride Center puts on here in Gainesville. And then just kind of got to know each other a little bit better. You've been coming to Shift for a minute, and for a little bit, and so as we got to talking, I thought, you know what, you have such a unique perspective and a wonderful way of seeing the world and God and spirituality and all of the things that we kind of talk about. So I was just like, you need to be on this. And so I'm thankful that you agreed. So thanks for taking the time and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here.
Nice. So let's just jump into it. So you and I have talked a little bit about this before, but obviously, most of the people that are listening to this have never heard your story. So let's start with little Kane. What was childhood like? What was growing up like? Was it here in Florida? Was the church part of it? And then, kind of, let's just start there.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. Me and my twin sister was born in Virginia during my mom's vacation. I believe it was a family reunion. She was about
That
to
is a
board.
vacation.
Oh, it was some vacation. 'Cause, twins usually are born early, and we were 5 weeks early. And also, it was an adventure because my sister, she was breech. She had to have an emergency C-section. She had a fever of 104, so she was out in a coma for a while.
Gosh,
Then my sister needed to stay in the hospital for a little bit longer. So it was a little bit of an adventure.
no kidding.
Um, but eventually we made it back home to Connecticut. Everybody was fine. Everything was good. It was just hey, welcome to the world type of a situation. But yeah, I spent my early years in Connecticut with my mom and my grandfather. We lived with our grandfather. And I have very vague memories of going to a particular church.
Mhm.
There was like glass windows that was like really, really impressive, with tall ceilings. Like I look up and it's like, wow, this never ends.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those like really I guess classic looking churches.
Mhm.
The hallways echoed and they were large. I have very vague memories of going to Sunday school. And meanwhile, I'm like three.
Mhm.
So I'm like around 3 years old. And I can't remember if this is the church that my mom, no, my grandfather and grandmother joined, like founding fathers, or like the founding
Oh.
group. There was a
Mhm.
group of couples that founded a church, and I can't remember if this is that church or not. But eventually, not long after my brother was born, my mom discovered the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Mhm.
So she left the family church, or that particular church, and brought us over to the Jehovah's Witnesses. Um, so yeah, we were with Jehovah's Witnesses until moved to Florida, and that was 2 weeks after my eighth birthday. Um, we did go to the Kingdom Hall for a few years, but it just wasn't the same. It didn't have that family close knit um feeling, which I thought was very unique. Um, it was just it played a really interesting role in my life. Um,
Especially during those formative years of being such a, little kid, and that's the environment you get to grow up in.
yes, So Jehovah's Witnesses, like we were pretty much involved with the Kingdom Hall,
Hmm.
about 3 to 4 days a week. Um, and I learned a lot about compassion
Hmm.
in the terms of, um, we have this insular world, this small world, this ideology. Um, but and then there are those who are in the Kingdom Hall, and then those who are of the world outside of the Kingdom Hall. And so it I was taught to have a lot of compassion for those outside of the Kingdom Hall, mostly due to, um, the idea of 1,440 people making it to the kingdom, to heaven. And we just know that those outside, they don't have a chance, but we can go knock on doors on Sunday and tell them about the kingdom, and tell them about heaven, and tell them about the end of times, and about how the end of times is coming. And um, we it's would be a very beneficial and good idea to prepare for that. Um,
I can remember
another
I can remember being a kid in elementary school. My formative years were spent outside of Dallas, Texas, and we had a kid in our class that was Jehovah's Witness, and he would bring
mm,
tracts, and they were just like these horrific scenes of people being burned, and the earth swallowing people up, and I'm talking like first grade. He's handing these to me, and scared the bejesus out of me.
oh yeah, for sure. I actually got into it with like verbally. Um, Pretty much was, let me see, how old was I? Maybe like about 5 or 6, maybe more like 6. I was talking to somebody, I don't remember who, and I was like, this really is not okay.
Mm.
Um, to talk about the end of times, and damnation, and death and destruction with kids my age and
Hmm.
younger. Like there was no segregation between, the kids and the adults. Everybody heard the same thing, and it was all about, we don't want to hide the truth from the kids or from anybody. Um, and I just remember several times just shaking and quaking in my seat, because I was just so afraid,
Hmm.
and just pretty much was just in a state of terror, based on the language and what was being shared. And the images are just really, I think there really were a way to emotionally motivate people, um into a particular way of being and thinking.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that play out once you all moved to Florida and you kind of distance yourself? I mean, you know, based on a myriad of factors or whatever, but you start coming out of the Jehovah's Witness, not attending the Kingdom Hall as much. How did that start? I mean, did you all continue to seek like a spiritual faith or life, or did it just kind of like fall by the wayside?
It pretty much, fell by the wayside. My
Mm-hmm.
mom was working 2 jobs, and then she started going back to school. um
Good for her.
and so yeah, yeah. I think like when I graduated elementary school, I think, and she graduated from college, she got a degree. It was like around that time. I know it's like 2001. So um maybe it was like the sixth grade, somewhere around the sixth or seventh grade. I don't exactly remember, but it was around. I just remember there was a celebration, and then there was a celebration that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
um um so yeah, it pretty much just fell by the wayside. And even so, my mom, throughout growing up, she was like, we're going to go to this church, or we're going to go to the Kingdom Hall, um and I'm going to expose you to this, but
Mm-hmm.
you do not have to pick this. It is your decision. to follow by some of the things in the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is like not saying the Pledge of Allegiance. But I remember her sitting us down and she was like, if you're not going to say the Pledge of Allegiance, then you'll need to stand respectfully and be very quiet. And you can use that opportunity to pray, or you can silently meditate, or think about things to yourself. But this is the reason why I'm not going to say the Pledge of Allegiance,
Mhm.
and you need to make that decision for yourself. I'm not going to tell you what to do. And she's been very good about that. Especially, I would ask her, "What should I be when I grow up?" And she's like, "You can be whatever you want to be. Like, I'm not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't. What I want you
Mhm.
to do. Like, that's not okay." And she got that growing up, but she didn't want to give that to us.
Mhm. Nice. At what point, I did not grow up Jehovah's Witness. I have friends that have been. One of our neighbors is a Jehovah's Witness, but she is this beautiful human being that we absolutely adore. She loves our kids, um, but I don't know much about the teachings or anything itself. So, but I'm, just from the outside looking in, it feels very rigid and a very like us versus them kind of system. And even if you guys are just kind of like, even if your family is just kind of like on the outside looking in, it still seems like that it would still be that, maybe not to such a degree, but still be some of that. So how did that play into, because I don't, I think I can guess, but I don't know their teaching um on uh, on queer people and
Mm.
inclusion versus exclusion. But how did that all begin to play out? Were you younger when you started to realize, hey, I'm not what the church is telling me I'm supposed to be, or was that later in life?
No, very, very young. I didn't have the language
Right.
uh when I was younger. I have this one very strong memory. It was not long after my grandmother passed. And I think I was like around or close to 2.5 years old. And my mom, she was giving me and my sister a bath. And so she went and she carried my sister off to get her dressed, and she told me to stand here. She wrapped me in a towel to stand here. Don't go anywhere, don't do anything. I'll be right
Hmm.
back. And so I was just, standing there, and I happened to turn around, and then there's this like full-length mirror on the door. And I went over to the mirror, and then I realized, oh wait, that's what I look like. It's like, no, that's not true. Like, the mirror is lying. This is not true. This is not true. And I just started screaming the scream that my mom rushed into the room. She picked me up, looked me around. She's like,
Uh-huh.
"Don't have any broken bones. There's no blood on the floor. Like, what is going on? Like, what is happening?" And I just had like this huge meltdown. And I was just pointing at the mirror, and I was pointing at the mirror. And my mom was like, "Oh, okay. I think, you're recognizing yourself for the first time. And so, no, see, look, this is you. Like, this is what you
Hmm.
look like. And you're such a beautiful, and you're such a pretty little girl, and you're gonna grow up to be a beautiful young woman." And
Hmm.
I wasn't having it. I just had like, I just melted. And I just remember like screaming, "No, no, 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 no." Um, and I just remember like trying to find words to describe. And you don't have a lot
No.
of words at 2.5, almost 3. So I did my best, and I just remember being so frustrated um about not being able to tell her that, no, I'm supposed to be a boy, or I see myself as a boy, or I don't
Hmm.
recognize that person, or I see someone else. There's a person in there. There's two people in the mirror. Um, and I was trying to get her to fix it. Um, but and that scene kind of played itself out again around puberty, like around 12, 13. And but this time I had some more language, but I just couldn't bring myself to say anything. Um, so in that instance, I also knew that I was queer as well.
Hmm.
And so realizing that gender, sex, and sexuality are three different things, and none of them is normal for me.
Yeah.
And so I remember like tiptoeing around in or maybe I should backtrack. Um I did not like dresses, and we
Mm.
had to dress very formal at the Kingdom
Mm.
Hall.
That's right. I do
And
know that. Yeah. Yeah. Sunday
yes,
best.
Sunday best, the best of the best. And so I used to fight with my mom a lot, and in the clothes store trying to find dresses. And so eventually we came up with a deal that from the hours of when it started all the way up until I think it was 11:30, um, I had to wear the dress only for one day of the week. And at 11:30, we'll go home or you can take the dress off. And I can wear something else. Um, and so whenever I saw the clock and it reached 11:30, I was ready. Okay, it's the deal. And so slowly but surely, my shoes would be off.
Uh-huh.
And then my stockings would be off, like the stocking socks would be off. And then eventually, and so my mom would have to usher us out. Because I
That's
was like,
funny.
you promised. um, yeah, so as I started getting older, um, my behavior in terms of clothes and dress and just in general, I felt like uh I knew I had to be two different people.
Mm.
Um, and I learned how to be two different people because uh the theology, there's people of the world and people not of the world. And so we 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 were taught how to be kind and compassionate to those outside of the Kingdom Hall, but do not become emotionally attached
Mm.
because we're not going to see them.
Did so growing up in that, did you realize, especially when you're talking about like, getting a little bit older, hitting puberty and stuff, did you realize that what you were feeling internally would, if you spoke that out loud, would switch you from Kingdom Hall category to of the world category? Like, was that a conscious thing? Did you realize that, okay, if I say this out loud, I'm not gonna be able to be part of this?
Yes, because there was another instance. Um, I think so. I was on a really fast track to becoming one of the youngest pioneers.
What is a
Um,
pioneer?
a pioneer is pretty much as people who knock at your door.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah. So that's like the easiest, quickest uh
That makes sense.
description. Someone who goes and shares the word.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and so I'm like 7 and I'm going to these study groups. And so I'm really learning about the Bible. I'm really learning about this, that, and the third. And then I just couldn't reconcile like the things of the Old Testament, um, the New Testament, and the laws of man, which we would call um, the legal system.
Hmm.
And so again, this duality of the laws of the Bible that the Jehovah's Witnesses follow, and then there's the legal. And oftentimes they do not,
Hmm.
they do not fit. Um, so there's another that sense of duality, living in two different worlds, um, and just accepting that that's just where we are right now. We're in two different worlds. So I could not uh like so yes, God, Jehovah, um in Jehovah's Witnesses, Jehovah.
Yeah.
Um I was like, I firmly believed that God was pure love, and anything outside of love was not God and was man-made. And I was like, it's of man, and these particular things in the Bible, that is of man. I don't understand why we're trying to put something other than that in there. Um, and I don't remember the exact words of the conversation. I don't remember, um, word for word, but I do remember the feeling. And I just remember that, you know, the people that were there, they really were, I really, threw them, a left field question, and they couldn't give me an answer. But they were like, we're gonna go and talk to the elders, and we can give you an answer. That's one of the things about Jehovah's Witnesses, is that, during these Bible studies, we ask a lot of questions, and oftentimes there will be an answer, and most people are satisfied. And it comes to a point where the answer is given is not satisfying anymore,
Hmm.
because you'll learn more things outside of the Kingdom Hall. If you do interact with the world outside the Kingdom Hall, then sometimes the answer you'll find will not be good enough. And that usually causes splinters and people, leaving um, Jehovah's Witnesses. However, I just remember I had the book open. I can't remember where. When I closed that book and put the book down, I felt internally a door shutting. And I was like, this is it. I am done with this. This is no longer in line. This is an old way of being. This is an old concept that needs to be broken. And I need to let this go. Um, and so I had to be very, very diplomatic, and I had to be very, very careful of the things I said that moment on.
Hmm.
Um, because I could be excommunicated. Now, they never had this situation with someone so young. I don't think they would excommunicate a child, um, and, allow the other members of the family to join. My mom needs to take care of me. So
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
can't be I can't be on my own. So I remember several months. I told them at some point, I was like, I need to sit and think about this. I need some time to figure out, how do I feel about all of this and where do I want to go. And luckily, we were getting ready to move to Florida. So I was just like, what, I'm just going to stretch this out, and ride the wave, and really, um just be very careful.
Hmm.
And I also knew that, in previous conversations with other people, testing the waters about LGBTQ people, and one person snapped at me. And so I was like, okay, so I think, we're not going to be able to talk about this either.
Hmm.
Like, I've never seen like the fire ignite in their eyes. And I think, like, they were afraid that this was not a good topic. Like, even like, it was just so inflammatory that I was like, okay, we're not going to. I'm just wondering. It's like, I just wanted to know. I'm just trying to understand. That's how I responded. But there was a part of me that was like, we're not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And then I sat and meditated for several months, and I really felt like, you know, there may be a time that we will leave the kingdom hall, and maybe going to Fort Lauderdale will make things a little bit different.
So did it when you moved to Fort Lauderdale? Like I think you mentioned earlier that you kind of found a place, but it wasn't the same, and so your mom wasn't really into it.
Yeah, and that was pretty much it.
Okay. Okay.
It's like I just felt like my time with the Kingdom Hall was coming to a close. And
Mm.
eventually it did over a span of maybe 3 years. And yeah, there was also like the whole scandal happening around that time when we moved as well. Um and I think that was around like 96, 97. And I remember hearing a lot of stuff in the news. And and we still got the Watchtower, we
Mm.
still got other things, like other like reading material in the mail. And we would read it every once in a while, and so, oh, this looks interesting, like we still kind of it we for years, I think we still kind of held on to
Hmm.
um some of the love that we had for our Kingdom Hall in Connecticut. Um, but as I gotten older and went to college, like that just
Yeah.
wasn't wasn't there anymore. And it didn't take until coming to Gainesville and having conversations uh with my partner actually about about religion and spirituality. And that really um forced me to really think about my beliefs, because I just was,
Mm.
oh, okay, I believe in God, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know all this stuff, but it wasn't in the foreground. And and then it was more of like an emotional, it's an inward type of a um experience that didn't really take a lot of words. Like it
Right.
wasn't a verbal experience.
Right. So at what point in time, because you had mentioned, very early on, recognizing that, there was two people inside, one you're seeing and one that you're feeling, or seeing yourself as, and then, you know, didn't really have any language for that. You hit puberty, and you mentioned that, there was, maybe you didn't go into it, but like puberty was another one of those moments. At what point in time did you really begin to start like putting things together for yourself and saying, okay, well, um, we've left this Jehovah's Witness stuff behind. There's still all those teachings. I'm sure there was still internal struggle taking place,
Hmm.
some back and forth, maybe some fear. That's kind of a shared experience with almost anybody coming out of high control religions. Is anytime you step outside of whatever their strict teaching was, then there's that fear of hell. Even if you don't necessarily believe in that anymore, it's still so ingrained. So I'm curious, at what point in time did you start that wrestling of like, okay, well, I've got to come to terms with all of this stuff that's happening, so that I can move forward in a healthy way?
mm, I don't think it was um until I got into therapy as an as a young adult. um because I will say, so at some point in middle school I really became nonverbal. I didn't really speak. And all throughout high school I didn't really speak either. And into my first year of college I still was mostly uh I didn't really speak.
Mm-hmm.
And most of it was just sheer fear, like words wouldn't come out. And I remember my counselor in high school, and even the program director that I was in, it's like they knew I was trans. They knew that this it would be beneficial if we talked about it. But I couldn't I couldn't I couldn't
So,
I
well, I was just going to ask, was it fear of God, fear of everybody around you, fear of what the reaction might be or what it means?
Yeah, all of the above. All of
Okay.
the above. Um, I also was afraid about how like my family would take me, and I was
Mm.
afraid of being disowned. Um, uh, I was afraid of, I guess, also even my own happiness. There was just so much. It was so complicated. I'm like, I also knew that my mom, like, it was just been really hard on my mom. Um, because we were low income, very low income. And So I knew this would have been another burden for her. My sister, she has mental health. She was going through mental health stuff. And she needed a lot more assistance, a little bit more assistance. And being a minute older and being treated as you're a year older, because I was a little bit more independent, um, and didn't like getting into trouble, um, I felt like, um, I couldn't say anything. And even if I did, I was afraid of what would happen if I said something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it was just like, okay, well, I don't know where the money would come from to even get me help. Um, and I was afraid. I mean, that is a huge life change. It's big. It doesn't affect just me or my family. It even would affect the school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the 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 headmaster of the program, I remember she pulled me aside right before I was enrolling into the high school. She asked me, I think she picked up on that I wanted to go by a different name, and she asked me if I wanted to go by a different name. My mom was there, and I think she noticed the excitement in my eyes, and then how I shut down really quickly because I didn't know how my mom would take it. And eventually, I was like, no, I'll go with the name that I have right now. Um, and I think my mom was a little confused. I didn't really understand the dynamic that was going on. Um, I even in kindergarten, I when I went on a feminist rampage, um, my kindergarten assistant teacher even pulled me aside and asked me, "Do I want to be a boy?" And um, and I was like, I sat and thought about it, and again, the same kind of conversation. How would mom react? How would the family react? With what money? How much stress? This is going to be a financial burden. This is going to be a burden emotionally, mentally. And I was like, what is the right decision here? What should I say? And then the answer was, I really need to conform. I really need to just conform. And the answer that I think the correct answer everybody would want me to say is no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so a few days after that, I was like, you know what? I don't need anybody to approve of me being a boy or not. I can be a boy and still have, a girl's name and still wear girls' clothes, and I don't need anybody else's approval. And so I was like, you know what? That's that. And it seemed like the heavens opened up. There was like sparkles everywhere. Like it was just I was filled with so much joy. I was surrounded by love. And I felt that, and I was like, you know what, this is the right decision. And I think even like my spirit guides were like clapping and was like, congratulations, like you passed the test, type of a situation. And and so I kind of recently found myself in that kind of um realm of self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Because like for me, my transition has been a very slow and meticulous journey. Um, and but also I'm also mixed race.
Mm-hmm.
And so dealing, navigating all the aspects that make up myself and really going through with a fine tooth comb and healing those aspects of myself that I either rejected, stomped out, um, um, or allowed other people to take and weaponize and use against me, um, for various different reasons. Uh, yeah, it's been quite a journey. Um, and I think the journey is lifelong, healing any type of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
the lifelong journey.
Can we jump back just for a second because you said some things that really struck me. especially when you were talking about being in high school and all of this fear that you felt, you know,
Mm,
fear of God and fear of what it would mean for your family and fear of how people would accept you, fear of would they, would your family accept you, all of these things. And, recently this past year, I don't want to go too off topic, but, this past year has been horrendous when it comes to uh, trans people and legislation and kind of being the targeted minority group, the favorite target minority group for particular brand of politician. And one of the things that I think happens, especially if somebody that's in conservative circles or evangelical circles, they may not realize, maybe they don't have any relationship with a trans person, but a lot of times they don't realize they actually do,
mhm,
and it becomes a topic. It becomes something to debate. It becomes something that we're going to talk about as far as legislation or law or sports or bathrooms and stuff. And the humanity is taken out of it. And
mhm,
I think it's so important for people to hear that as a student in high school, which should have been, and maybe they were in their own way, but like my high school experience was just so awesome. I loved high school. I would go back and do it all over again because it was so much fun. I mean, I'm glad I'm not there anymore, but it was a lot of fun. But what should have been, great, you talk about just being afraid, and that's what's that's what's happening all over the place. And I think it's
mhm,
really important that you said that because you're a person, you're Kane, and that was your experience. And you're not a topic to debate, right? Like you're a person,
yeah,
and you deserve everything that everybody else does. And yet,
mhm,
the current conversation is is void of any of that humanity.
yeah. I mean, to go back to high school, what was being the talk right then was, I think it was George W. Bush said that marriage should be between a man and a woman.
Mm,
And I was like, well, then what am I doing? If I'm not allowed to get married to the person that I love, then what's the point of going to school? What's the point of finding a job? What's the point of existing if I am not allowed to have a family that is respected like everybody else? If I can't be like everybody else in terms of um, having the same opportunities,
mm,
um, then what's the point of living? I mean, that was another part of an aspect of this depression, um, anxiety, um, stuff that I was dealing with. Um, and then to mention, like, the whole political aspect, um, especially in high school, uh, and even in college, because
mm,
I went to a university that did not have an LGBTQ student union. Um, so even transitioning such a university, that was also traumatizing.
mm,
And actually, to even really think about it, it wasn't until after I had top surgery, or for those who don't know what that is a double mastectomy. And it wasn't until several months afterwards, maybe maybe like about 4 or 6 months, I realized that I spent 27 years of my life in a state of terror.
mm,
And I was like, whoa, I'm in this place, this new place. I don't know what it is. I don't understand. And I was really able to see all the trauma, all of the hurt, all of the suffering. And boy, did my heart break.
mm,
Um, so because there was food insecurity, because there was housing insecurity, um, you know, I, what was going on in the world around me at a certain point, I couldn't even participate or even think about because I'm too worried about how am I going to put gas in my car and where and like what am I going to eat for dinner? like eating another peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, how
Mhm.
many times are going to do that this week?
Yeah. And what that does to you, not only what that does to just you mentally, but also what it does to you physically, just that
Yeah,
the constant of the stress of the
survival
worry.
mode. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just trying to survive,
Mm.
just trying to survive. And
So,
that's what my silence was about, was just trying to survive, because I knew if I spoke what I needed to say, I had a sinking feeling that DCF would come and get involved.
and
But
that's
that could have been a fear. I don't know. I don't know if that would have been true or not.
and that's not something, as a child or student or even a college student, those aren't things that you should have to worry about.
No.
You've got a mom that's working her rear end off, going to
Hmm.
school and trying to take care of the family and all of the stuff that, we could really dive into over there. And then you've got all the stuff that you're dealing with. And yeah, those aren't worries that you're not even emotionally capable of dealing with those
No. No.
at that age.
No. And then was it not right after I graduated, my mom gotten sick with cancer. So then there was that, like taking care of her. And then when I went home for the summer after my first year, I took a chemistry class at the community college. And I just remember, okay, I'm in class, I'm taking my sister to her school, I'm making sure my brother gets up and he goes to his school. He was in high school, he's 4 years younger. And then taking my mom to her appointments and then checking up on her in the hospital.
Mhm.
Um, it's just,
A
it was a
lot.
lot.
That is a lot.
And to deal
So,
with,
no, go ahead.
no, and then also to deal with just being queer and trans,
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the time to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So you mentioned 27.
Yeah.
Was that now we don't have to go off the deep end here, but somewhere in there I'm assuming there was a like a coming out to
Hmm.
to your family, and was that in your 20s as well?
Yes, that was in my 20s. Yes, that was in my 20s.
So I'm assuming that preceded like actual physical transition stuff.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So in college, I remember I had two wardrobes. I had the wardrobe that I would bring with me to home, and then I had the wardrobe that I wore in college. Um, and so I was already dressing a lot of
Mm.
really masculine most of the time. And
Yeah.
even in high school, I was really dressing very masculine. Um, but near the end, or midway, actually no, around at the end of my second year, that's when I was like, you know what, I'm really going to just wear the clothes that I want to wear. And so when I went to, I think it was like 2012 was when I came out to a lot of my friends and I came out to a lot of people in college. And um and then uh and then I publicly came out uh November 20th of 2012, and then I went home for Thanksgiving, and then came out to my mom first and my siblings. And I was at 2012. Yeah, so I already had made a decision that I was going to start medically
Hmm.
transitioning. My mom, she took it very well. My siblings did not, and especially my twin, she took it the hardest, I believe. Um, and there was just various reasons why both of them took it pretty hard. Uh, but in March, I think it was like May 2013, I stumbled into a program at the community clinic, um, where they would help give provide hormones for very low income trans people And so I was able to get in. The program was very short-lived. Um, but I remember filling out this packet, and the doctor there, he at first he thought I was transitioning to be a woman. And I'm like, no, I'm transitioning to not be a woman. um, and he looked through my packet and he was like, oh, we're going to start you today. We should have started you yesterday, but we're going to start you today, pretty much. It was like, you meet all the qualifications. I've already been um, living or appearing very
Mhm.
masculine for quite a while. It probably, oh yeah, I remember I was already taking like testosterone supplements
Mm, mhm.
um, for a while, and just kind of like uh, yeah. And so he was like, okay, we're starting you up. We're starting you up. Um, so yeah.
Hmm. So so you were talking about at 27, you have done some of the medical transitioning, and you realized, looking back, in the space that you were then, looking back, you saw all of the pain and the trauma, and things that you probably couldn't see in the moment of,
Hmm.
like you said, your silence was about survival. In that moment, you probably couldn't recognize that. So from that point forward, like, because I know, there's a lot of pain in your story. Um, but also knowing you now, and I didn't know you then, but knowing you now, and then, like, when we're recording this is right after Christmas of 2023, and you're part of your family came to our Christmas Eve service, and
Hmm.
y'all had a great time, and everybody looked amazingly close, and your dinners and all of the things. And so there had to be so much healing, because now, looking at you, watching you, knowing you, and the all the work that you do here locally, not just your job, right, but the
Hmm.
things that you do outside of that, um they just make life better, right? Like,
Hmm.
you help make the city better. And um I'd love to talk about that for a little bit, like
Yeah.
how you healed, and now how you're taking, how does all of these experience inform your spirituality now? How does it inform the work that you do now? And how does
Hmm.
it, how did you find joy in all of it?
Mm. I knew, I think like my determination and the ability to persevere, knowing
Mm,
that the things I'm experiencing is temporary. And I think it was also very helpful that I've had visions, um, spiritual visions, uh, where I saw myself at different ages.
mm,
And all of these visions and memories helped me realize that there's something more to come, and that this is just something that I need to go through. Um, this is part of my human experience,
mm,
and my human experience is going to give me the ability to really connect with humanity in a very deeper way.
mm,
Um, and as I heal those around me.
mm,
And so, not long after 27, I really took my healing on a deeper level, and I've really been taking a deep dive since then. I maybe about like since the past 5 years. Um, and I don't want anybody to go through anything that I've been through. I
mm,
don't want anybody else to suffer in the same ways that I've suffered. Um, but I also, you know, as I become the best version of myself, I'm co-creating an enlightened society.
mm,
And my desire to co-create this enlightened society informs and drives the volunteer work that I do within the LGBTQ community.
I think that's a really great way of saying that. And I don't know that I've ever heard anybody put it that way, of co-creating this kind of world that we want to see, right? Because I think
Hmm.
um, one of the things I read and do Audible all the time, and I'm listening to, I don't know if you've ever come across it, but it's The Universal Christ by Richard Rohr. Um, and he talks about the communal aspect of faith, and not to get too in the weeds of faith, but I think that applies to everything. We're so hyper individualistic in the United States, and it's
Hmm.
pull yourself up by your bootstraps and blah 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 and pew, 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 all this stuff. Uncle Sam, and yet the world is so much better when we realize that no person is an island, right? Like
Hmm.
the things that we want to see, I can't do it alone. There are things that I can do by myself, but we're better together, right? We get further together.
Hmm.
You want to go fast, go alone. You want to, I can't remember exactly how that goes, but just that idea of co-creating, that it's not your responsibility alone, but you do
Hmm.
have a responsibility in it. And I think that's really, I don't know, it's a really good way to put it. It's deep, it's understandable, right? But
Hmm.
I think it's necessary. I love how you put that.
Yeah, thanks. It actually really comes from my teachings with Shambhala.
Mm,
So there's a place in Gainesville, Shambhala is where I go to for meditation, and they're the Tibetan Buddhist meditation center. And I remember hearing that and I was like, whoa, that is that is the words to what
hmm
I am inwardly experiencing. That desire.
hmm
I want to see a better society. I want to see less suffering. I want the world to be a better place and more kind of like my experiences with the Jehovah's Witnesses. I want that to be um I want there to be a healthier version
mm,
of that. Um and even in any of the other experiences that I've had, I want there to be a healthier experience. And so between Shambhala and the Sacred Earth Center, um, which is uh, the what I maybe a metaphysical, but also more. It's just another spiritual center.
hmm
Um, uh, between those two places and like acupuncture, massage therapy, chiropractor, um, mental health, my therapist,
hmm
um, all of my practitioners, they all have their own spirituality, their own gifts, and their own teachings and their own wisdoms, um, that has shaped my healing and strongly shaped my perspective, kind of more of like narrowing and refining my beliefs and perspectives that were already there. Um, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for all, not just them, but everybody, all of my friends and even people I don't really know that well.
hmm
Because one thing that I've learned from Shambhala is like everything is a practice,
mm,
and everything, any and everything can be used as a way of awakening and could bring you to enlightenment, or can open that heart of compassion, not just for yourself, but for those around you.
hmm hmm it's funny how those those major themes are shared amongst so many faith systems, and yet so many of the people within, and I'm not going to, I can't speak to any other faith system but the one that I grew up in, the one that I practice now, but so many of them would rather exclude than include. It's easier to do it that way, us versus them, right? Like, we're in the
Hmm.
kingdom hall, you're not. We're in the church, you're not. We're going to heaven, you're not, and but man, just like being on the other side of all of that, just how healing it is to just, just to be, and this is who I am and this is
Hmm.
who you are. And, you know, um, if I were still, if my wife and I had never done the internal work that we had to do, some of it was just, us, some of it was external things. Um, but there's no way we would be having this conversation. There's no way, because the system I was in would not have allowed for that. And now, and and some people still argue, they're not listening anymore, but I still get it from some people where it's just like,
Hmm.
oh, you're going to hell and you're taking everyone with you. And it's just like, okay, okay. Meanwhile, we get to be over here co-creating
Hmm.
this world that we want to see, which is to
Hmm.
me just so, oh my gosh, satisfying is not even the right word, right? I mean, it's
It's
just like,
uplifting.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm like, it's what fills my heart.
yes,
What fills my spirit.
yes, 100%,
Hmm.
100%. So I don't want to take up too much of your time because you are on vacation technically. We all got
Hmm.
some time off, but I do want to end with a couple of questions for you, because I
Yeah.
think you bring a unique perspective, not only of just life and spirituality, but all of the things. For those that are listening, and I got an email just the other day, showing like demographics and where listeners are from and stuff. And we've got a large, the biggest group is in Florida, but we also, like, our second largest is up in Pennsylvania for some reason,
Hmm.
and we've got a good size over in California, and there's listeners in 32 countries, which is crazy to me. Yeah,
Wow.
crazy to me. And so I want you, if you can, and I know you can, to speak to, like, if you had the opportunity to sit down with all of these people that are listening, um, what would you want them to know? And then my second question is, what encouragement do you have to those other trans people or trans siblings that are listening, that maybe they're in the middle of their season that you went through, or maybe
Hmm.
they're getting ready to head into it? Because, one of the things is we've got several families in our local PFLAG and our student pride meetups that are, they're students and they're dealing with a lot of this stuff. What would you say to them too?
Hmm. And the first thing that comes to mind is that, be the light for yourself first and others. Um, Another thing that comes to mind is that we are all beings of love and light, and we should never let anybody take that away from us.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever, however, um, it that that resonates with you in how to reclaim those fragmented pieces. For me, it was Reiki, um, uh, massage therapy. I've been on medication
Mm-hmm.
temporarily. Um, seeing a therapist. I've been seeing a therapist for most of my life, or half my life now, more than half my life. Changing your diet, exercising, um, coloring, journaling, um, whatever resonates, even just, sitting next to a tree
Mm-hmm.
and having 5 minutes to yourself to just be, um, and finding those spaces where you can be your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And wherever those spaces are, gravitate towards that. Find the little sparks of light around you and connect those sparks to make an even bigger spark.
Mm-hmm.
And to fulfill the light that's within you. Um, and it could be what in any way, shape, or form that resonates. Meditation has really, really helped me, and I think it could help a lot of people.
You know,
Um,
it's funny you bring that up, and not to interrupt, but you really challenged me and encouraged me to do that. And I'm terrible at stopping. I'm just terrible at
mm,
stopping. But after some digging and stuff, I found a book of, and I think I even talked to you about it, told you about it. For me, it was a book that somebody gave me on Celtic benedictions, and it's
mm,
morning and evening, prayer meditation, and it gives a thought. It actually gives several thoughts for me to go through, which has been very helpful because I need something to guide me.
hmm.
But it's made a difference. It's made a difference for
Oh
me.
yeah, yeah. I mean, just even if it's just taking a moment to take those 3 breaths, those deep 3 breaths,
Hmm.
like I've really decreased my anxiety by a lot. And now it also gives me an opportunity to pause and be like, is this my truth? Is this can I allow myself to say yes to this, or can I allow myself to say no?
Hmm.
Can I allow myself the opportunity to speak for myself? Can I self advocate? Um, and I've had to do a lot of that. Um, and so it's creating opportunities to come home to yourself.
Mm, I like that. I'm gonna
Hmm.
remember that. That's gonna be a clip. Um, so what would you offer to families, students that might be listening that are also trans or trans families, and they're navigating all of the nastiness? Um, what encouragement do you offer them, having walked through it, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, knowing what I know now. Look for an option C. And option C could be compassion.
Mhm.
Option C could be um I need to remove myself from this situation. Option C can kind of be like the third way or the middle ground. Um where we do not have to have all the answers right now. And sometimes it's okay to sit in the flames of our own experience. Sometimes it's okay to really take out the frustration at a punching bag, um, or go on a run and just really exhaust yourself. Um, but we can use like the shower as a way of releasing all of that negativity,
Mm.
and washing away, like have that intense. This shower um, is has golden rays is coming from the shower, and it's washing away the negativity. It's washing away what no longer serves me. It's washing away the things that all the negativity. Um, I went like it it is temporary, as hard as it may believe. All things come to an end at some point. And so the suffering will come to an end at some point as we heal. And it may be we may need to make new friends.
Hmm.
I actually had to leave Tallahassee. I picked up my stuff and moved from Tallahassee to Gainesville just because there was just so much um, suffering. Um, I just needed to move. And if that's something that people can do, then the answers, the medicine is deep within. And oftentimes we kind of know what we need to do, and it's just giving us allowing ourselves to do what we need to do in whatever way that looks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important to find community, to build community, to find like-minded individuals so that you know that you're not alone. And that you have someone that you can talk to who's going through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be like a journey together. Like all of my friends, um, all of my coworkers, past, present, um, they've definitely held, and they still continue to hold, um, oh my gosh, so much meaning, because even if I was nonverbal at certain instances, even if I couldn't express, even if we didn't really talk that much, just their presence alone, knowing that, they are seeing me as me, or they, are interacting with me in um in a positive way, um, that really made some of the darkness go away. Not completely. Um, it it was still there, but I was able to hang on a
Mm-hmm.
lot longer than I thought I could.
You weren't alone in it.
No, I wasn't alone in it. And no one should be alone in
Mm-hmm.
their journey. Please go find um, a companion, whether it's a cat, a dog, or another human being.
Yeah,
We
and
don't, yeah, we don't have to be alone.
yeah, and I'll add to that that if you're listening to this and you're local and you are struggling to find that, oh, please reach out. My email is in the show notes, and I can help connect you to a ton of local resources, local groups. Kane was part of the Pride Center board and is still really connected with. I just lost the name.
Oh, Unspoken Treasure
Thank
Society.
you. Yes, I just lost it.
Yes.
I wanted to say Tranquility, but that wasn't the right one. Yeah, Unspoken Treasure Society. There's so much here in Gainesville, and I know that in the surrounding areas there's not as much, but I promise you that we can connect you to something that will help walk you through that. And if you're listening nationally or internationally, again, please reach out or just Google PFLAG where you're at. That's a great way to start. They're an international group. Parents, look up Trevor Project. I mean, there's just so many resources out there in
Mm-hmm.
good ways. Uh, Mom Hugs is another group for parents and students and stuff. But anyway, yeah, I I think that that's probably such a vital key for so many students, so many families that are struggling right now, particularly right now in the season that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Just having people, like you said, you don't have to have all the answers, but man, that doesn't mean you can't be compassionate. That doesn't mean you can't love. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
so much that, we're still newer to all of this stuff. And I do not, me, I don't claim to have answers to much of anything. But that doesn't mean that I can't stand next to you. That doesn't mean that I can't lend any kind of privilege I have to you if you need it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that I can't love you or be compassionate. Just you don't have to have the answers to be nice. I mean, you just
Yeah.
to be
And
kind.
like like really, like, I had to tell myself that. It was like, I know like what kind of trans I am? No, but do I really need to figure it out right now? No, I don't. Like, do I want to have, surgery? Yes, maybe, until I was able to figure out, no, actually, I do want to have this surgery, and this is something that I need to do. It's okay not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Am I queer? Am I gay? Um, I'm somewhere in the spectrum, but do I really need to have a definite, like, fixed location? No. And we can give ourselves permission of, we need to of figuring it out,
And I not to compare anything, but you saying that just I think back about over my life and where I came from and the journey to where I am now. And I say it all the time, but 27-year-old Joe would hate 47-year-old Joe. They would not get along at all. And it's the same thing. That's just the human experience, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's and that's the commonality of the human
Yes.
experience. that
Yes.
that so many try to divide and say, no, trans is a box here and gay is a box here and this is a box here. And yet we're all literally walking and having so many shared experiences of just,
Mm-hmm.
when I was 47, I thought I would have it as a kid. Looking at my parents, I thought they had it all together, right? And
Yeah.
now I'm their age. When I thought that, I don't have anything together. I still don't know what the hell I'm doing, right? I'm just trying to do
Yeah.
the best I can with what I got, right?
Yeah.
And it's just such a shared experience. And thank you for bringing that out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just just the things that we don't talk about,
Mm,
and I learned so much about my childhood and about how I would want to be a parent. Um, and children, young people know a lot about what's not being said.
mhm.
I think I learned so much more wasn't what wasn't said than what was actually said. Um, but um, that's why having an open communication is very important, or
Mhm.
just communicating. Period.
Period. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Kate, I just want to say thank you so much. This was such a good conversation. I literally could keep talking, but we've already gone over an hour and I don't want to keep you forever. But again, just, number one, thank you for agreeing to come on here and sharing your story. Number
Hmm.
two, you're welcome back anytime if you have something you want to talk about. Number three, thank you for all that you do in Gainesville for so many. Like I said it earlier, our city's better because of you and people like you and just the love and the joy that you bring to places. I can say that our little faith community shift is better for you being there. So,
Hmm.
I've experienced that personally. So, for just all of it, just thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. I'm really happy to help, and yeah, I'm really glad and grateful and honored to be a part of this. So
Yeah.
thank you, Joe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, y'all, that was a fantastic conversation. I'm excited for all of you to hear it, to listen to it, to just kind of like absorb it and take it all in. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. We've got a couple of ways to do that. You can go in the show notes. Kane, I don't know. I didn't ask you this ahead of time. So if you're not down for this, I will just edit it out, right? But if
Hmm.
somebody hears your story and they want to know more, or maybe it really resonated with them, how do they can they get in touch with you? How do they get in touch with you?
I think the easiest would be Kane.bar, kanebar.com.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to think about it for a second.
Yeah.
Kanebar.com. I have my in the media section where I have all of the news articles and things that I've published there, but you can go to my contacts page. I also have links to some of the meditations that I do and with Gainesville Shambhala and the Sacred Earth Center. I also offer individual meditation sessions as well as groups. So
That's awesome.
kanebar.com.
Okay, well, we'll put that in the show notes too. So you can just go there and you can click the link and then you can contact Kane. You can learn about all of his stuff. And if you're local, sign up for one of his things. I'm sure that it'll be hugely beneficial. So again, just thank you so much, Kane. Really appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. That was another awesome conversation on Shift Happens. Now get out of here. Go love on some people.